Two East Texans will help officially decide who the next Democratic nominee will be. Mike and Nancy Nichols of Smith County shared their expectations for this year's convention with KLTV's J.D. Conti.
I remember 1968 and the feeling of the country a week ago had some similarities.
Nancy Nichols of Smith County is heading to her first ever Democrat National Convention, serving as a delegate. Her feelings toward the convention have changed in the past 24 hours as President Biden exited the race and Kamala Harris emerged as the party's frontrunner.
But things changed yesterday. The whole feeling changed. And there's an excitement. I'm excited. I don't feel wary about going.
The party will now vote for a new nominee after choosing President Biden in the primaries. Nancy's husband, Mike, is also serving as a delegate.
If a candidate was running for a local office and they got sick, or they decided that, hey, this really isn't for me, then they just drop out. It's the same difference, just in a higher position.
Biden's endorsement of Harris does not guarantee her victory. Over half of the required delegates have already pledged to her. The vice president has gathered over 1,150 delegates of the almost 2,000 needed. The Nichols are currently Biden delegates. That will change come the convention.
He has officially endorsed Kamala Harris, and he will lead us as Biden delegates in the right direction. And I have every intentions of following that direction.
The Nichols will take part in a meeting with other Texas delegates tonight, where they expect to learn more about how the convention will work. J.D. Conti, KLTV 7 News.
The Democratic National Convention will be held in Chicago starting August 9th.